Hey everybody, Mr. Foley here. Hope you're doing okay today. Today we are looking at the scientific revolution and we're looking at filling our notes for this section. So you should have some notes open that are in Google Classroom. They should look something like this. And we will work on the first 2 pages that focus on the scientific revolution. So you'll see them as I go along. The sections in yellow are what you fill in. So feel free to stop this video wherever you need to so you can fill those in. All right, on our mark, get set, here we go. So when we look at the scientific revolution, we're looking at a change, a major change in the abilities of people and how they can use science and scientific methods and instruments to understand this world in a way that people before them simply couldn't. The new technology made things possible that were not in the past. When you look at microscopes and you look at thermometers and barometers and telescopes and all these things, they start to be able to see the world in a more rational way because they can, because the instruments are there to make it happen. So dramatic changes occur in Europe between 1500 and 1800 that completely transform life. Many also begin to affect life in America as well. If you look at Thomas Jefferson, he was really big into science. So the scientific revolution were new ways to think about nature and our world. Why? Well, for 2 main reasons. Number one, they begin using scientific observations with the new tools that they have at hand. And secondly, they're willing to question the established beliefs. One of your assignments is going to focus on Aristotle. Aristotle was a Greek philosopher. He was a thinker, and he had a lot of ideas about science. And while some of his ideas are right, some of them are totally false too. But because he was seen in such high esteem by people after him, for hundreds, if not 1,000 years, people just assumed he was right. And it's not until later on that people question him and they look and they say, oh, actually, some of his ideas were wrong. And so for a long time period, people just accept that things are true when they weren't. The scientific revolution is when those changes start to happen. And this is what happens as a result of the Renaissance and the Reformation, when people are asking questions and looking at the world differently. Now, when you bring all that to light with science, we're going to see a whole different world because they start to look at it from the perspective of true knowledge instead of, accepted knowledge from the past. So whose beliefs were they questioning? Well, they were questioning the Catholic Church, who said certain things, but they weren't necessarily ideas that were balanced with science per se at the time, and philosophers of the past, such as Aristotle that we just talked about. These different groups and people had a lot of opinions and thoughts, and everybody accepted them as true. The Catholic Church is the leading church, so you don't question that. Aristotle was, he was like, when we look at George Washington, you don't really question him because you hold him in such high esteem. But yeah, you should. You should question their ideas and make sure that they're true and honest and right. And they start to do that. So, reasons for change. There's a bunch of them. The first one, what do Europeans learn from Muslim scholars? Well, as they trade, as they get involved in the Crusades, and you see more Europeans and Muslims from the Middle East come in contact with each other, new ideas flow in. And Muslims in the Middle East and Asia had some amazing ideas. They had ideas about astronomy and math and physics that were way beyond what Europeans had at the time. And as these ideas come in, the scientists in Europe eat them up and they blend these ideas together with new technology to get some new ideas. And feel free as I'm going along to stop if you need to fill in your notes. I'm kind of going fast. What did they realize about classical thinkers from ancient Greece and Rome? They learned that they don't always agree, that they debated, that sometimes some of them were wrong and some were right. And this is a really important lesson because scientists begin to realize that they can question the past. They can question each other. They can debate, and that's okay. For so long, they just felt like you have to accept these ideas. That's not the way it was. In the past, they debated too. It's like when people look back to the American Revolution and think it was just all hunky-dory, it wasn't. They had fights. They had debates. Some of these people did not like each other. That's the way it was. And so for scientists, they realize that, hey, they didn't agree in the past. We don't have to agree now. And it opens up this whole new world. if you feel like you can disagree with somebody else, because then you're more open to study and more open to learn, which is a good thing. Number 3, what impact does the printing press have? It's just like we saw with the Reformation. All of a sudden, you have this new tool that can spread information faster and farther. And so when new ideas come out, people publish them. And these publications go to scientists throughout the area, and they look at each other's ideas and they build upon them, which really helps them out. You know, we're going to look at Isaac Newton. He looks at the ideas of Copernicus, and they look at the ideas of Galileo, and all these ideas together form this new knowledge. And so before this point, it was a lot harder. Maybe you had some letters people wrote, maybe you had a book or two here and there, but once you have the printing press, it's real easy to spread ideas. And that's beneficial. Scientists love to work off each other's ideas. They do very well with that. And so that was a good thing. Next is the age of exploration. European countries are going out with their ships to try to discover Asia and new lands, to try to get gold and other goods that they felt were really important. And so, as they're going out, they need new tools. They need a compass. They need different map making techniques. They need all these different things so that they can sail further and faster and get to areas first to claim them for their countries. And this demands scientific knowledge. And so you're going to see some government involvement here where they're going to back up science because they need new knowledge in order to be successful in expanding empires, creating new trade routes, and getting ships further out to sea. So new equipment was needed to help these ships. And science provided that. So you have all this change happening, but not everybody's happy with it. Okay, for example, Galileo. Galileo supports Copernicus' idea that the sun is the center of the universe. The problem was this went against both Catholic and Protestant groups. They believed the earth was the center, and neither of them, was willing to allow the people to see that the church was wrong. And so if you think about the situation, what are you looking at? Well, it's pretty simple. Before you have telescopes, think about what you see outside. When you look outside, do you feel like you're moving? No, of course you don't. Does it look like the sun's moving? Yes. Does it look like the moon's moving? Of course it does. And so, common sense says that we're sitting still and everything else is moving. Simple observations seem to show that. And you pair that with some readings in the Bible that kind of make it seem like the earth is standing still. And that's why the church, held this belief that, the earth is the center of the universe. But when Galileo and Copernicus question this, they're not only questioning science here, they're questioning what the church is teaching. And the church is extremely concerned that if you open up that door, people will question other things like beliefs. They saw people falling away already because of the Reformation. They didn't want to see it happen again with science. And so for a while, the Catholic Church was a closed book in terms of not allowing these new ideas to flow in. In time, hundreds of years later, they change. And today they're very big in discussing science, but that wasn't the case at first. So what happens to Galileo? Well, it's a shame. He's warned that he can't follow Copernicus's ideas. He's put on trial and he's made to take back his statements and say, I was wrong about this. And he ends his life on house arrest. He dies in house arrest because of his beliefs that the sun was the center of the universe. So this is an obvious example of the Catholic Church getting it wrong with science. They've admitted that hundreds of years later. But you see that progressing in science can sometimes be dangerous because you're stepping on other people's toes and they don't like that. And that's kind of part of the danger that comes with working with different fields when people may have different opinions than you. Other changes we see, the scientific method comes forward. You probably have used this in science class, right? And how does that happen? Well, it creates a logical procedure to gather information and test ideas. You have your hypothesis and you study the information to figure out what is actually true instead of just saying, you know what, I think this is what it is. And so a logical decision-making process, an observation process, which is really important to science. And new technology just increases what you're capable of as a scientist. Microscopes, telescopes, barometers, thermometers, all these different things make it so that you can measure and you can write down data and compare that with other things. They figure out that the sun's the center of the universe because they have the new telescope and they plot where planets and stars are in the sky and they watch them over time and they say, hey, the way these things are moving, it's impossible for the Earth to be sitting still. So great new tools. You look at the microscope, you can start to see blood cells. You can start to see different microbes and things you never saw before. Excellent in understanding the world better. So what's your end result? Well, society gains a much better understanding of how the world, humans, and the universe operate. New technology creates the ability to travel to new areas. It also allows scientists to begin understanding the universe and how the human body operates. The scientific revolution creates the beginnings of our modern understanding of science. And it opens a new doorway to the idea that we as humans have potential. Humanism, we've talked about it. And if we use that potential, we can have a better understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And so you're going to see people looking at this and really questioning the past and trying to learn about the world that they live in today. So that's the end of your notes. From here, you have a few things going on. You have the assignment Aristotle's Errors, where you're going to use some textbook readings and look at what did Aristotle have wrong, the ancient Greek philosopher. Then you're going to look at the Shoulders of Giants activity. And you're going to look at some videos and some notes to look at, Isaac Newton's life and who did he learn from and who has learned from him in the past and in the present. And that'll be followed up by your assignment on Isaac Newton, which will be the final assignment for the unit. So if you have any questions, talk to your teacher. And that's what we got for today. Have a great one, and we'll see you later.